This is your second time in Central Asia, Mr. Schinas. And how have you seen changes occurring within Uzbekistan since 2021?
If I were to, if someone would ask me to point to a part of the world where there is consistent, sustained, positive change, without any doubt, I would point to Central Asia. In a world that is getting more complex geopolitically, a world that often is darker, more unstable, more insecure, Central Asia offers an area of stability, I would say, and reform. And for us in the European Union, this is a wonderful thing to see. And we want to engage. We want to be part of this positive change. We want to be a catalyst that would help all 5 countries of the region do better. And I'm delighted that my tour, the first of a commissioner to visit all 5 countries in one go, is part of this rapprochement, I would say.
And within that sphere, as you travel between these 5, how do you see their relations with each other and their relations together with the EU in terms of the C5+1?
First of all, I think that clearly now there is a convergence amongst the 5 across the policy spectrum. They understand themselves that they have much more to gain by coordinating, working together in areas like border delimitation or management of resources or climate change, connectivity. They have an interest themselves. And I think that this is in turn crucial. It facilitates greatly the EU-Central Asia partnership. If our partners in this part of the world work together well, that makes the bloc a much more appropriate interlocutor of the European Union. And I'm delighted that next April we would have the first ever EU Central Asia Summit to take place in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. That would be a great moment. That would be the cherry at the top of the cake, if you like, that would symbolize this new spirit of cooperation.
They have a lot of potential here, not only in resources but in human capital. Uzbekistan has a really young and growing intelligent population and what they have to offer, and I think in collaboration with the EU's projects, they can definitely grow even more.
That's clear. Uzbekistan is, I had the chance to discuss this with the president. I told him that if Central Asia is a success story, Uzbekistan is one of the champions in this league. Clearly, this is a country that has great potential. It's a country which is the biggest number of inhabitants. That creates an additional responsibility. But also it's rich in resources, reform-minded, and clearly the progress that one can see is remarkable. I was here November 21, and even in 2 years and a few months, you can sense the difference.
It's quite tangible.
Yes, absolutely.
So you just mentioned resources, and I would like to ask a little bit about the rare earth elements that are here in Central Asia. What is the EU Commission's avenue to take within regards to resource management, resource trade, engagement?
I mean, the cooperation in the area of critical raw materials can be one of the pillars of this new approach between the EU and Central Asia. Connectivity is the other pillar. The critical raw materials can become a win-win partnership. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and others in Central Asia clearly would benefit greatly from investment, European investment and European technology in making better use of the critical raw material. And we, in the European Union, we could use this partnership not only to cater for our development needs, but also as a cement of this new partnership. I think this is one of the best examples that one could think of this future cooperation, and I'm delighted that in my contacts across the region, this came out everywhere. I mean, there is a very genuine interest of interlocutors here to engage with Europe in critical raw materials, and that's a great thing.
There is, as you mentioned, a lot of enthusiasm for this, but there is also a lot of doubt on the hand of investors coming into the region, because there's always that fear of instability. But from what I've seen in terms of the forecasts for GDP, for growth within the region, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan have had the most stable forecasts in terms of 5%. So what do you think in terms of investors' fears of being involved in here?
Look, investors are investors. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's their call on where to put their money. But I think for us, regulators or those who are there to shape the regulatory environment that would facilitate investment, as you say, all the omens are good. The numbers are good, the forecasts are exceptional, I would say. And when speaking of Uzbekistan in particular, Uzbekistan has also achieved many important things that can help investors to take away any doubt. For example, Uzbekistan has already access to our system for the generalized system of references, GSP+. We have finalized, and we will be enacting very shortly, an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. There are good prospects for Uzbekistan joining the WTO. So all these are signs of positivity, if you like, that can help investors to instill confidence and facilitate investment decisions.
Does the interest in terms of the raw materials, critical raw materials, does this have anything to do with the EU's de-risking and decoupling?
Well, this is a complex world. It's an interdependent world, and clearly critical raw materials is part of this global race of competitiveness. There is a global race out there on energy, on raw materials, on talent, on how you attract people, and clearly clean tech is also another world race. So clearly critical raw materials is part of the game, but this should not be seen as a zero-sum approach, that to work with Central Asia, Europe is losing opportunities elsewhere. We are, and I think universally recognized, as a force of good. We engage in a positive spirit with our international partners, and let me repeat that for us, Central Asia is a privileged partner, is a stable partner, is a growing economy, and more importantly, it's trustworthy. I mean, that's very much the feeling I get, that we have here interlocutors that we can trust.
Well, now with regards to your meeting with the President, are there any key takeaways you would be able to share with us on what was discussed?
Well, I think the agenda was very much the same that we are discussing with you. The President is clearly one of the main architects, I would say, of this drive of Uzbekistan to reform and modernization. I'm always impressed by his ability to see the bigger picture. He's also very excited about the EU Central Asia Summit, and he's ready to play ball.
Yeah, the summit is coming up very soon.
Absolutely. I don't say it's ante portas, but it's very close. April is rather close.
Relatively close. Would there be anything you'd like to say with regards to this forum in Brussels to possible attendees?
Yes, this forum in Brussels, the Investors Forum in Brussels, which will happen on the 29th and 30th of January, is an opportunity to catalyze and boost the connectivity element of our partnership, the second element I was referring to earlier. We now have the intention to bring everybody together. Not only the governments, all governments will be represented at a high political level, but also investors, international financial institutions, partners, and our experts. So we will have them there in Brussels for 2 days, and the idea is that at the end of this forum, we will be able to translate what often sounds like a policy objective, a study, into a project that would have the adequate resources, the adequate planning, the adequate regulatory parameters. And I'm very, very confident that this will work. We have now a new instrument in the EU to do this. It's called Global Gateway. It's beyond the traditional model of development aid. It entails the participation of private capital, international financial institutions, has a job creation element, and the connectivity dimension, transport and energy, and digital satellites, it's huge with Central Asia.
The idea for them to come together and have these chances to network, to meet, and for Central Asia, Uzbekistan and the EU to really solidify their relationships.
Yeah, you were asking me a few minutes ago about investors and what moves investors. Well, this is a dream for investors to have everybody in the same room for 2 days and be able to see in practice what it takes to translate an idea, an investment project, into a tangible reality. And again, the potential for connectivity in Central Asia is immense. This is a natural link between East and West. And also, you give me the opportunity to say that in this connectivity, I discussed many projects with governments here. There are no first or second category connectivity projects. Everything that helps the Trans-Caucasian, Trans-Caspian corridor, it's a priority. So we will use this opportunity of the investment forum to make sure that all these projects are adequately presented, adequately analyzed, and sufficiently attractive to make investors move. And we will be there with our money, with our instruments to help this.
To facilitate. And this brings me into the next question in terms of facilitation is visas. I did a little research yesterday because I wasn't really sure in terms of the visa refusal rate for Uzbek citizens. And what I saw was there's an average of 12% visa refusal rate for Uzbek citizens from within Uzbekistan applying for visas to the EU. The highest refusal rate is coming from the German consulate, and that is at about 23%, which is relatively high, but I also saw that they get a majority of the applications through them, so it is relative. Is there any move to easing the visa facilitation process?
Let me first say that I consider myself as the most anthropocentric member of the College of Commissioners. I'm in charge of coordinating policies that have this human-centric, people-centric element, and I'm a great believer and defender of the visa as a way of connecting people, not preventing people to move. Having said that, I must say that the political moment now, we are coming to the close of the current political cycle. There will be European Parliament elections in June. There will be a new commission taking over on the 1st of December this year. So it's always difficult, I would say, at the end of a political cycle to initiate visa facilitations discussions. It's not politically feasible or doable. Having said that, I would very much welcome that we get into this mindset of visa facilitations dialogue in the new political cycle. Clearly this entails, according to our own institutional system, a mandate from the member states, from the Council. It's not something that Brussels decides on our own. that would also require for countries like Uzbekistan to continue engaging and working with our member states. And part of this equation is also, of course, to bring the visa refusal rate as down as possible. So provided that all these boxes are ticked, yes, we can start moving towards visa facilitations dialogue.
And that also kind of segues us into the idea for Central Asian countries to kind of create a Schengen zone. How feasible do you think that would be?
Well, I'm a firm believer in the idea of regional cooperation and bringing regional economies together. Look, we are seeing this in the Western Balkans to a certain extent. There is an emerging single market and approximation of legislation in the Western Balkans. There are signs of that happening also in Latin America, both in Mercosur and beyond Mercosur. I would imagine that Central Asia is an excellent example of a group, a regional group that can move towards this convergence. As we were saying earlier, there is already noticeable convergence between the governments of the region, and yes, why not? Although the level of economic development is not the same, but I can clearly see the potential for further integration, which in turn will facilitate EU Central Asia partnerships.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.